everybody. Welcome to the August Lymphedema Patient Roundtable hosted by LymphaPress. I'm your host, Alexa. I am the Marketing and Communications Associate here at LymphaPress, and I'm also a primary lymphedema patient. And I am joined with a wonderful panel of people here. I will introduce them in a moment, but we are just so pumped you're here with us tonight. So while we wait for everybody to log on, I'm going to introduce our lovely panel and then tell you all some exciting changes we have for the roundtable tonight. So I'm going to get started. We have Catherine Rosenberg, who is a cancer survivor, secondary lymphedema patient advocate, and math teacher. But as I like to say, it's summer, so no math questions for Catherine until September, please. She's on break. We have Kelly Bell, our veteran fighting lymphedema and fierce advocate for the cause. We have Angela Jones, a lipolymphedema patient and health coach. And then we have Karen Ashforth, fibrosis queen, tongue twister, and she is a certified lymphedema therapist. So we are super excited you all are here. Let us know where you're coming from in the chat. And I'm going to go over our changes, or rather experiment for the roundtable tonight. So we were all chatting, us panelists, and we thought, why not we try something new? We're going to shake things up a little. With what better to shake things up than with structure? We're going to have a bit of a schedule for the roundtable tonight. So the first half is going to be the panelists chatting like we do. And then around 8:30 Eastern time, we're going to go into a Q&A forum part. So everybody put your questions in the Q&A box like you do, so we can make sure we get to all of them halfway through the show. And then the most exciting part, we think, is around 8:45 Eastern time. We're going to have the first LymphaPress Lymphedema Patient Roundtable call-in show. So we are going to have people who want to participate use the raise hand feature on Zoom, and we will call you to join the panel, and you'll get to pop on voice only. We don't want any accidental cameos or anything like that on video, but we'll go over that again as we get closer to the time. But it should be fun. So you get to come on this side of the table if you'd like and share a little bit. So we're super excited to pull up a chair for you guys tonight. So we've got Layla, Caitlin, Iris, Robert, Rich, Terry, Lori, Olivia, Thomasine, from Baltimore. Hey, I'm in Baltimore too. And Vicky, oh my gosh, everybody's joining in. We love to see it. I'm going to shut up now. I have talked enough. But again, a reminder, questions in the QA box, and gentle reminder too that we cannot give you personal medical advice. We are not your doctors. Most of us here are not medical professionals at all. So we will talk from our own personal experience, and we have the lovely Karen Ashforth here to help field some of the medical questions as well. So I'm going to hush up. Anybody on the panel want to get us started? What's going on in your lives?
Catherine.
Catherine, surgery update.
Share your story.
My story? What story?
Well,
Catch up.
You're a year out now, right, from your big surgery last year, and
Yes.
you just recently had liposuction. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about all of that?
Okay, so it's been, this week is 7 weeks. This is the first week I'm actually not seeing my lymphedema therapist, not by choice, but she's on vacation, and I told her she had to put me in her suitcase, but that didn't work. So we were on our own this week. But as of last Friday, August 4th, my leg was down to a 5% difference after 6 weeks from my ankle to up to the top of my thigh. Actually from the top of my thigh, from mid thigh up to the top, and from the base of my toes up through my ankle are exactly the same size or smaller than my unaffected side. I am able to do so much more. This week, I don't know if you can tell that my face is a little bit red here. That would be because I am on staff for marching band, and it is band camp week. And so we have band camp every day from 8 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. And I was able to get through the entire day yesterday without needing to sit and worry about, is my leg swelling? Is it doing anything crazy? It actually maintained for the most part. It did swell up a little bit, but nothing that didn't go back down overnight. And I used to never be this way. I actually am now going to the gym. So I left band camp yesterday at 4:30 and I went to the gym at 5 o'clock. I'm not quite sure that this is the right way to do this, but that's okay. My body was really craving to going to the gym. So it's been, this has been a very unique year for me in terms of getting things under control, and things just keep improving, to be honest. And honestly, I know he hates it when I say it, but this is honestly through the work that Kelly does behind the scenes and of all of his advocacy and research that he does, that he helped to get me diagnosed and get me where I needed to be.
Thank you. It's worth it. Everybody's worth it.
Love that. That's very exciting updates. And Kelly is right. Everybody's worth it. Everybody tuning in right now. We have a lot of familiar names in the chat and a lot of new first timers as well. We think you all are so worth it. And we're so glad you're here tonight. If you just tuned in and you missed my really long spiel at the beginning, here's a truncated version. We're doing panelist chat for the first half, and then Q&A we'll get to in the second half, as well as the Lymphedema Patient Roundtable call-in show for the last 15 minutes or so. So keep those questions coming in the Q&A box, and we'll get to those at the halfway point tonight.
One last comment. If
Go
you
ahead,
want to know more about my central lymphatic story, I'm not going to share too much more because it's being shared at National Lymphedema Network Conference. So that's in Philadelphia, October 4th through the 8th. So if you're able to come, you'll be able to hear more and be able to see more visuals.
That's a good plug and a good segue too, because we did see, I'm sure a lot of people here are in some of the Facebook lymphedema support groups, and I saw some chatter recently about a possible connection between lymphedema or lymphatic dysfunction and digestion issues, because a lot of people, especially with lower extremity lymphedema, have noted that they've developed swelling in their abdomen or things like that, or they're experiencing weight gain despite not changing their diet or activity levels and all of that stuff. So we thought that would be kind of an interesting topic for tonight, because a lot of people can probably relate to that. I know a couple people on the panel who can relate to those issues, and a certain therapist on the panel, our only therapist on the panel tonight, who could also speak to that as well, digestion and lymphedema. So if any of you want to take that away.
Well, I'd love to just hop in and acknowledge that we have 600 to 700 lymph nodes in our body, and the majority of them are in our gut. And so if a person has any type of food sensitivity or allergy or histamine reaction or something going on with their digestion, it's going to affect the lymph nodes. And you got to know that if mom ain't happy, nobody's happy. So if the gut is compromised, if the gut is struggling in terms of having a lot of reactivity to things, then the lymph system as a whole is going to struggle. So I regularly recommend to my patients who are having gut issues to get allergy testing, sensitivity testing, get with a nutritionist, get with someone who can help you rebalance the biome and the flora in the gut. And it's well known that patients who have some forms of primary lymphedema actually have gluten intolerance. And I think that it's more widespread than we know. And just in my caseload, I notice a high incidence of patients with gluten intolerance who have reoccurring cellulitis infections. And I have them do the gluten challenge, and they wipe gluten out of their diet and they stop getting infections. So this is not medical advice, but this is just information so that if you have any of these issues, you may want to go to someone who's qualified to assess and help you out. So that's my 2 cents.
More than 2 cents worth. That's great information. Thanks, Catherine.
So I actually did do a food sensitivity test twice. Once was in the beginning as my central lymphatics was being diagnosed. And then again, it was about like 18 months later. And we actually saw a complete shift in what causes inflammation now versus what was causing inflammation before. I basically couldn't, Kelly, would you agree? I basically couldn't eat any protein for some odd reason. My body was saying it was very inflammatory for every protein that there was. And now that's not an issue for me. There was a lot of changes, and it changes for good. But one of the changes was that I became gluten sensitive, which was kind of strange because I think it would be backwards. So,
So can I kind of like, so what Karen said and what Catherine Rosenberg said, we're part of Catherine Rosenberg and I, and there was a group of us that are really trying to figure this stuff, like what's going on in our body, what's nutritionally happening. And then last year, there's a researcher that presented about like gut lymphatics, and like it was last September. It was called Yet to Be Charted: Lymphatics and Health of Disease. And she presented, and the first part of her presentation was where they've identified that it's actually the lymphatics and the duodenum that actually apparently cause a lot of the allergic issues in your gut. And so and that's the first place where your stomach dumps everything. And so it's really funny. Like, if you guys don't know, I have medical air plastic injected in my thoracic duct. And I went from like having no allergies to where, boom, I am like immediately allergic to peanuts, like boom, like food. And that used to be like one of my common energy sources because I was very athletic and it was a good source of fuel between there. And so that's why, if you're having gut allergies and stuff, but the gut, like lymphatics in your gut, like that, the majority of them are there. And sadly, my error was caused by a GI doc. So I've seen quite a few GI docs. 2 years ago, I went to go get a colonoscopy, and one of the GI docs I was talking to him about my lymphatics being blocked in my gut and stuff. And he goes, well, you don't have a whole lot of lymphatics in your gut. And he pointed to a placard on his wall that had no lymphatics. And I've been doing this for 18 years. And so I happened to bring my own ammo, and I brought my own little placard. And I'm like, see all the lymphatics in the gut? It happens to be the most in the body, and you know nothing about it. That's sad, because like it has huge nutritional implications to the body, what we absorb for nutrients, how we absorb it, can we get it? Our lymphatics in our gut actually feed us. And it's a very important part of the process that's being left out in current medicine. And so when you have all these gut issues, even allergies, apparently, because now I'm allergic to bee stings. My dad was a beekeeper. I've been stung my whole life. And then all of a sudden, within the last 2 years, boom, I can't even bee stings. So I just can tell you from gut issues, as what Karen said, I don't eat bread because it really, like, if you have like what I have, I can tell, boom, within very short amount of time that I have those issues. I've reduced my beef, red meat intake because something's going on there. I'm actually eating like basically an MCT diet with ketones to help give me energy, just to try to get the inflammation down. That's what I'm working on right now. And it's helping. I've lost, like, I was swelled up last year to where my head swelled, and it's really affecting my head. So my whole goal is to get all my inflammation reduced in here. Because when you look at the pressures in the body, just so you guys know, your pressure in your chest area is supposed to be like a negative pressure. Well, I have so much fluid, if it comes positive, your head cannot drain the lymphatics from the meningeals. And so what happens is that fluid gets backed up. That's just cerebrospinal fluid trying to clean itself. And when that happens, I can honestly tell you, you go from brain fog to where brain don't work, to where you remember, you could be sitting there talking like me. I was talking to my wife and I couldn't remember her name and things like that. And so I guess I kind of understand more of the brain fog. Like, it's not just like having to like quickly forget something. Suddenly you cannot, like, you go from being able to multitask one day to one day the next day where any distraction like causes it where you have to start over. So what's going on in the gut? It's called the gut brain axis, gut lung axis. The gut is linked to everything. And so for me, we do a lot in my treatments. We do a lot of abdominal MLD, deep compression and stuff, and we make sure we clear these. Everybody talks about breathing as your breathing, your clearing this, and your gut needs to be all part of your treatment, especially if you're bilateral anything. I highly recommend you bring those in. I can control my extremities, swelling, inflammation, because I know where my damage is completely by maintaining my gut. And so I mean, if you eat something and you have an issue with it, quit eating it. That's
What
the
Kelly
simplest.
said. And I want to just emphasize that everybody is individual. And so there's no way that I would recommend that everyone take out gluten and everyone take out dairy. But there are some people that don't do well with them, and we're all different. So there's no blanket suggestion. And I think that's why it's so important to get with someone good that you trust, that you can work with, that can help you get to the bottom of things, and be a bulldog like Kelly, and keep going back and keep going to different people and keep asking questions, because this is your body and your gut is so important. As Kelly mentioned, it controls the functioning of everything, and you don't want your brain offline.
No.
No.
I know. And Kathleen Listen said in the chat, hi, Kathleen, glad you're here. She said, Kelly, when you mentioned the doctor not knowing about gut lymphatics, she said, that's not sad, that's dangerous. And that's true. And I think that's a really good segue to something I wanted to bring to the panel is, how do you advocate for yourself and your lymphedema when you're with a medical professional who either doesn't know anything about lymphedema or doesn't know anything about lymphatics or not enough about lymphatics? And, as patients, sometimes it's sort of a double-edged sword. You don't want to be the one who goes in and acts like, you don't want the doctor to think you're saying that they don't know what they're talking about, but sometimes they don't. And you need to say like, hey, I have this medical condition. I have, these special considerations because of my lymphatics. How do you get them to listen to you? Anybody on the panel got some advice on that? I know we've all got experience with that.
I'll go with this one. So a lot of times I will really have the conversation with the doctor in regards to what I find or what Kelly sends me in terms of information that's found in research articles. And a lot of times I'll actually tell them, hey, why don't you take a look at this? And the next time I come in, we're going to talk further about it. So that this way it kind of leaves it open for them to really have to look at it and understand it, because they know that I'm going to come back and ask them, some things in regards to that particular research article that I've given them. Because if you don't give them research articles that pertain to what you're talking about, sometimes they will blow you off. Luckily, I've been very lucky in my recent physician that I have, because she's been with me on and off since 2005, because she was actually my home care nurse for the longest time. So it made my life very easy. But I've had to have that conversation. And sometimes it's not an easy conversation to have. And sometimes you do leave the doctor's office not happy, but you go home, you think about it, and you send them some information, because most doctors' offices now have that patient portal where you have the ability to send them files and send them questions and really kind of get their brains thinking about what you're experiencing and why you're experiencing it. And the more you give them, I feel like it's more food for them to want to learn about it. But you have to present it in a way that they realize that you care about it and that you want to make yourself better, which is why you're giving them the information so that they can help you and work collaboratively with you and others on your medical team. Because if you don't have that communication between your entire medical team, it makes it 10 times harder to get anywhere.
Yeah, Anita just said in the chat, she says, I believe education of medical professionals is key. Using published research, speak their language, send it through the portal, and ask to talk about it at your next appointment. That's really good.
I found that speaking with whoever the nurse is or the medical assistant of the doctor that you're trying to see, for me, has been very helpful, because I'm very bold about the questions I ask. And I'll oftentimes, like, I've had to see a lot of new doctors that I hadn't seen before this year. And when I would make my appointment, I would always ask that that doctor's nurse call me, and I would quiz her on whether or not the doctor, first of all, was she familiar with lymphedema? And I have both lipedema and lymphedema. And I would always ask the question. It's amazing how many medical people who spent all this time in school have no clue that lymphedema is something more than just edema. So I've found that I asked the question from the nurse, and if she doesn't know, that's kind of a red flag to me. because nurses tend to be more of the hands-on personnel, you know, with patients and as medical caregivers. So that's one thing that I do. And I ask those questions. And also when I've gone to see doctors that I haven't seen before, I always ask them from the beginning, always almost kind of intimidating. So what do you know about lymphedema? You know, so that's been very helpful to me, because oftentimes they think it's just simply that you swell. So.
Yeah, I'm currently going through a course of complete decongestive therapy where I go in for 4 or 5 weeks to my clinic multiple times a week to get wrapped and bandaged and have MLD and everything. And one of the techs who was unwrapping my bandages one morning, I was telling her I just got back from Camp Watch Me with pediatric lymphedema patients. And she goes, "Oh, I didn't know kids could get lymphedema." And I was like, okay, well, I suggest you go on Google. I said, here's some resources. But I was like, oh my gosh, you know, like you're working with lymphedema patients and you never made that connection or thought, I don't know. It's just crazy. But yeah, I like it. Oh, go ahead, Angela.
Oh, I think in life, there's always an opportunity to educate about something, not necessarily lymphedema, but something always. And I think when the opportunity presents itself to do that, it's a job that we should take on, you know, because it may help the next person.
Yeah. Can I get my two on this? I've seen, I keep a tally, 62 doctors, surgeons over the years. Early on, I was pretty mad about this. And so one doctor decided to tell me all my issues were in my head, and that didn't go out too well for him, I'll tell you that. But I learned over the time, like there's been like 5 doctors that were really like beneficial in this process. But you have to understand, you're going to them with something they've never been taught, something new. And then they have this very narrow window in our current medical system to where they have to try to be able to help you. And so I literally go in and say, I'm not expecting you to fix me in this visit, but I need to start educating you. And so my first visit with my doctor when I moved down to North Carolina was, I literally told him what's going on. He goes, I've learned more about the lymphatic system in this 15 minutes with you than I have in my whole 17-year career. And so trying to establish a relationship is going to help in some ways, but it's only going to go so far because he only has a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
Educate yourself. The more you're educated, the more you can put the doctors at ease. Like I had my first bout of cellulitis when I was down here. I went to the ER that was linked to my treatment care center, and the doctor's looking at my records and he's looking at my cellulitis. He goes, "What is that?" And I'm like, I explained to him my case, and he looks at me, and he's 20 years experience ER doc. He goes, how does your doc treat you? And I'm like, well, he knows what he knows and I know what I know. We're going to work on this together. And so if you establish a relationship rather than like, you're not fixing me, you have to understand you're probably going to be the most experienced, or you should be like learning yourself as much as you can, because there's no, like, they finish their school, their training, and I can tell you, done advocacy with a lot of doctors. A guy that I was advocating with, one of the doctors from Harvard that teaches it, he goes, they get an hour out of their whole 4-year training. So like, they're not going to treat you like right off. And so when you're dealing with your doctor, try to establish those relationships, Learn has great information on their site. NLN has great information on their site. So take information like that. And then that's how it's got to be done for now until we actually get it really part of medical school.
I think to piggyback off what Kelly said to you, have to not be afraid to either agree or disagree with the doctor. If they tell you something for your condition or something about your health and you don't agree, I think you have to be very verbal about that, to the point of just saying, you know what, I don't agree with what you're saying. Let me tell you what the real deal is. So yeah. I think something that a lot of people are afraid to disagree with their doctors.
And one thing is sometimes you may not realize that you disagree with your doctor right away. And that's where being able to message them in writing after and let them know why you disagree and provide them with supporting information that helps to prove on why you disagree is going to help make the physician grow further into understanding about your condition, because unfortunately there's so many of us that we might be the one and only that physician works with that currently has that condition. So you kind of have to really be cautious on how you do it. And I would always say, sometimes, I might say in the office, hey, I'm not sure I agree with that, but I'm gonna, think about what you said and get back to you. And I always will send them something afterwards. So this way they realize I took what they said seriously, but then I went back into my resources and looked to see what they were saying supported by my resources, or is my resources supporting what I had to say and didn't have that resource with me, and then send it off to them and guide them into the exact location in that resource where it's talked about. So this way you're not wasting their time. If it's a 45-page article, you just guide them right to the page and tell them this is where it is, and this is how I interpret it. Can you tell me if you agree or disagree, and why?
Or we could do what Tina says and wish that we had Kelly come with us to our appointments.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, like, and it's
I almost had that. I will say that. I almost had that.
I would feel lost, but if I wasn't in the research and understanding where it's going, cardiologists and research on the heart is really, really starting to understand how dysfunctional lymphatics could be the cause for a lot of the cardiac issues. And so as that community starts expanding that, and as I'm following where research is going, they're going to get there. That doesn't do well for us. But what I always tell people, like, when you see a chance to advocate or be part of groups, it's very important that you get your word out there to come as groups, because that's how we change things in this country. I mean, and it's a great opportunity. I can tell you, navigating the medical community, I hate the word compliance, because being a retired military officer and like Coast Guard guy, law enforcement guy, compliance to us means we have when we tell someone you will comply, because we take complete control after that. That means we have it all under control. The medical community makes that, like, when they list you as being non-compliant, because I get labeled that all the time, because I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Like, we're going to give you this pill, and I'm like, why? What are you treating? And they can't tell me. I'm like, I'm not taking that. And so then you get labeled non-compliant, and you kind of, like, in case you didn't know, I know doctors have their own note system. They share information about patients. And so you get listed that. And I'm like, well, like, I'm combative and non-compliant, but I'm not wrong. They just don't know. That's the problem. And so that's why I've shifted to, like, trying to establish relationships and friends, and, like, if you help me, you can. If not, then I'm just going to do the best I can to hang on until, like, and promote research and promote helping your doctors, promote being part of these organizations like NLN, Learn, even LTA. That was a very big one where everybody got involved. And it's, like I said, if you don't know, you still need to be involved. Brylan's Feet's trying to bring information about pediatric lymphatics. But these are, like, relatively small. And when you look at our community, there's 4 to, like, 8 million estimated patients. And it's really a very small part of our community that's actually getting the word out. Cancer is completely different.
Yeah.
Like breast cancer, this is crazy. When you look at the numbers for breast cancer, it's about 68,000 women a year who will develop lymphedema from breast cancer. When you look at all the abdominal surgeries from cancer, from, like, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, and all that number is like 366,000 a year, but no one even considers there's very little research or discussion into those patients. I mean, that's why I fight. When I came into the advocacy community, I felt like I was a unicorn in this. And then as I started advocating, I started seeing all these patients with lymphedema in their legs, and they had surgeries on their abdomen that caused it. And I'm like, why doesn't anybody focus on your abdomen? That's where the damage is. And so they, like, I don't know, like, this is where everybody, and I call it, like, I've done presentations where the title is treating the victim while the criminal goes undetected. It's because we're focusing on, like, it's like fluid. Like, the fluid is a symptom and it's not the cause. And so we have to work on the diagnostics for that.
I like that fluid is the symptom, it's not the cause. I think that's a really important distinction. And Fenton, who's in the house, hey Fenton, he says compliance is a 4-letter word for primary lymphedema patients. I think for all lymphedema patients or anyone with a chronic condition that could be applied. We're at the halfway point, and for those of you who weren't here in the beginning of the roundtable, we are kind of switching things up tonight and having we had the first half be panelist chat, and then the second half or so is going to be answering all of the Q&A questions, or as much as we can get to, because in the last 10-15 minutes we are going to have our first Lymphedema Patient Roundtable call-in show, where we're going to have someone in the audience who's willing and indicates that they're willing join us on the other side of the table to talk a little bit. So if you'd like to be considered for a participant, we're going to have Catherine do a random name picker wheel, so it's fair when the time comes. But until then, if you could just use the raised hand feature. I see Iris, your hand is raised, so I want to make sure you know that that's to participate or be entered to participate. But raise your hand if you're interested, and Catherine's going to put you in the name picker. And then once we get to about 15 minutes till the end of the night, we're going to spin the wheel and have one of you join us on the other side of the table. So that should be fun. So we've got so many questions that came in that half hour. It's amazing. So we're going to go through some of these, and I'm going to ask my panelists here if they see any in particular that they want to tackle, to jump in and tackle said questions so we can move through these, because there's so many good ones.
I'd love to just take that second question from the anonymous attendee. What should one look for in a lymphedema therapist? Do they usually go for further training than a basic PT? And absolutely, you need to have someone who is certified, who has gone through specialized lymphedema training, because a general physical or occupational therapist is not going to fit the bill. And maybe we can drop some resources in the chat for where you can find people that are specialized, because there are a lot of organizations where you can find certified lymphedema therapists, and hopefully there are some in your area.
Karen, can I ask you to elaborate on like what you should expect as a patient? Because myself, I don't go to anybody unless they're certified CLT or Atlanta. But even recently, my wife, like patients I've seen, they'll go, "Oh, I went and saw this CLT," but then the CLT teaches them self MLD and orders compression garments, and I'm like, that is not what should happen. You know?
So yeah, no, Kelly, unfortunately, that's true. Just because you're certified as a lymphedema therapist doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to provide quality care. But on the other hand, not everyone connects with everyone. So I think it's about finding the right person. I think you've got a better chance with a certified lymphedema therapist than a general physical or occupational therapist, because at least they've had the background and training. But depending on the facility, I know there are facilities where people get 30 to 45 minutes of treatment. I was noticing the chat, someone asking, hey, how long is your appointment? And there are clinics that will do 90-minute treatments, and then there are clinics that are just basically running patients through the mill. So that's something to consider too. I know that there are centers of excellence, and that they are more likely to provide quality care. So I guess you're right, Kelly, even if someone is certified, you may not necessarily get what you need, but you're going to have a better chance than with someone that doesn't have the training at all.
We'll include with the replay email that goes out in about a week with the recording of this. We'll include those resources on how to find a therapist and some places you can look, including lymphatic education research networks, centers of excellence finder. But I'll put that in the chat for now too.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Karen, because I've seen 6 therapists in my 18 years. First one, Vicki Ralph, I'll say her name because I love her. She came in at the right time. She was the first clinician to actually really make a partnership with me as a patient. And as you can tell, I think I'm pretty intelligent, but we started talking, we started developing things that worked on my body. After that, I saw 5 therapists, all CLTs, and they were useless. I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm unusual case, but even just typical things like one I went into and I was watching as I stopped a lady because she had just finished getting CDT and her garments or her thing was already falling off. And when I got to this therapist, she said, I don't know why people wait to come see us. And I'm like, that girl probably battled for years to get to see you. But and she was certified. And I'm like, man, I'm really starting to question what they're teaching you guys at this school. But yeah, you should get more than just like you. Yep, you got this, and here's how you do this, and here's your garments, go forth and conquer. They should help you and make sure what you're doing is working and help get you forward. Make sure that happens. Because that's what you're paying for, and that's what they should be doing.
Thank you. Any other of the questions jumping out to the panelists? Otherwise, we can move through the list, of which there are so many, guys. Thank you for popping them in the box here. And if we don't get to them tonight, we'll take note and try and get to them at next month's roundtable too. So we'll do our best, but let's see. We got a lot of questions from our conversation earlier on about allergy testing and the food sensitivities. And one anonymous attendee said, I'm consuming too much sodium as it's almost in every food product from bread to tomato sauce. What do you suggest to help me still enjoy my daily food intake with less sodium? I'm also high on the gluten consumption, but I'm not gluten sensitive.
I would suggest that you eat from the perimeter of the supermarket, because prepared foods that are in the middle of the supermarket generally have a lot of sodium in them. But if you're eating more whole ingredients and cooking from scratch, then you can really control the amount of salt that you put in your vegetables or any types of food.
I've been using I think it's called NU salt, NU salt. I think it's like a low sodium salt substitute, and it's been okay. It's been it's been good.
Like potassium chloride?
I think so. I'd have to look it up again.
Yeah, potassium chloride is different from sodium chloride, and then sometimes you can get something that's a combination of the two. And some people with lymphedema are going to be really sensitive to sodium, and other people no. So it's really, again, we're all such individuals. But, I encourage you to mix it up in terms of, trying to eat less prepared food if you do have a sodium sensitivity.
We got a question, and we get this question all the time, and we're always happy to answer it. Anita asked, or she said she had total knee replacement surgery on her right leg. Now she awaits knee replacement on her left knee. This is her lymphedema leg following 4 lymph nodes removed during cancer surgery. What should I be looking out for? She asked. What should I tell the surgeon so I have a good recovery?
Nita, I sure hope you have a lymphedema therapist that you're working with that you can talk to and go to before your surgery so that you can get prepared, because you want to be as reduced as possible before surgery, because after surgery, it's very typical to have more swelling. So not knowing your particular situation and what you already have in terms of your toolbox, you want to make sure it's as good as possible.
Thank you. And we got a similar question from Louise, so I hope Louise is still on and heard that too.
Yeah.
It's always a hot topic, or the knee surgery questions for sure.
Because if you're inflamed, your tissues are pretty much hypoxic and full of trash. And so you need to get that down as low as possible so it can heal better. And that's even on your eye. I recommend it even if you don't have lymphedema in that leg that's getting the knee surgery, just because I think it helps. I was watching a presentation from a doctor this weekend who said it doesn't matter how healthy you eat. If it can't get out, it all becomes toxic at one point in time. So if you're wondering if you're dealing with inflammation, it's because your body's toxic and not your tissues aren't getting oxygen. So
we got another question that this is also a hot topic, no pun intended. An anonymous attendee says that I was thinking of spending some of my vacation time in a hot and high humidity climate. What do I need to do while I'm on vacation that my lymphedema doesn't flare up and cut my vacation short? Just because we're on vacation doesn't mean our lymphedema, unfortunately, is on vacation too. We talk about this a lot, especially during the summer roundtables. Everybody here has some of their own tips and tricks. Anybody want to jump in and share what helps y'all? Go ahead, Kelly.
I hydrate quite a bit, and I take like usually I do more MLD like morning and evening time, but in those environments, because I live in one, I do manual stuff during the day, but also like during those hot humidity climates, I found it very beneficial. I take a liquid daily mineral supplement twice a day in my water because your body's not going to process those correctly. And so adding those like is going to help because like a lot of the cramping could be low sodium in the tissue, low potassium, low magnesium. And so trying to get those in, it's harder for your tissues to get those. So if you're cramping, things like that, that could help. And of course, if you get low sodium, like you can swell just from not having enough sodium in your tissue. So you have to watch all of it. It's like Karen says, and we all say, it's what everybody's going to be different. So I just would be prepared with that.
Yeah, speaking of preparation, I've heard a lot of patients say that they pack kind of like a little lymphedema emergency kit where they have like antibiotic ointment just in case and like things like that in case you do, God forbid, cut your foot or something or on something if you're hiking or things like that. Nita in the audience says compression in the freezer and dry brush extra. We hear a lot of people who put their compression in the freezer, in the fridge. I have not tried it personally yet. I know, Catherine, I think you have, right?
Mine is sitting there right now waiting for me because it's like been crazy with this.
A little nightcap in the fridge. That's awesome.
I'm in Arizona right now for the next week or so.
Mm.
And its temperatures have been anywhere from 110 to 120. But the cool thing is the humidity is so low. Still, it's very hot. And one thing that I have come to realize, I'm not an outdoor person anyway. I always joke that I only use the outside to get to my car. So I don't, my key suggestion is to avoid prolonged exposure to the heat. If you can be in and go out for a little while and back in, but not to stay out for hours and hours in the kind of heat that we have here. And they always tell us here at night on the news, take a gallon of water wherever you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, always have water. And I think we talked about this last week when we were talking about prepping, but you have a lot of massage therapists becoming certified lymphedema therapist as well. And I never thought of this till someone brought it up that like, yeah, when I travel, I set an appointment in the middle of my vacation to go see one of these therapists. It's going to be harder to get in touch with an OT or PT, I think. Sometimes maybe not, I don't know. But prepare ahead of time, and you may have access to someone that can help you in the middle of your vacation to help you get over that hump to get you through your vacation. So I thought it was a great idea. I've checked around different places and there are people that can do that. So there you go.
Keep in mind that some of them have waiting lists. So it's a good thing to plan ahead. Because I've had people reach out to our clinic and sometimes we have a 2 to 3 month waiting list.
Right. And that's why I was like, book ahead.
I found that if you're going to do that, a massage therapist that has experience with lymphatics is probably your route to go because they're not seeing patients for physical therapy or occupational therapy as often as just going in for a massage per se, because that's like a one and done or once, every couple of weeks kind of thing. So I've done that before and it's been very beneficial.
Yeah, that's good advice from Kelly though, because I'll be flying from here to North Carolina next week, going from no humidity to pure humidity. And I always get a massage a couple of days before I leave. And I always have massages lined up for the first 2 weeks that I'm in North Carolina. And same thing for when I come back to Arizona. I always have them lined up. When I make my flight reservations, I line up my massages shortly after that.
I love that. I think that's great advice. And we had someone else in the chat, Sandy says, swim with compression on, and swimming is like one of the best things you can do with your lymphedema for sure. It's natural compression. Oh, I just lost focus here. But you can use old compression garments if you have them lying around. Those are good for swimming as well. But you can swim without them too. Is that right, Karen? Because of the compression in the water?
Yeah, if you're in deep water, you're getting a lot of compression. Every foot of water has 22.5 millimeters of mercury. So if you are an average height person and you're up to your chin in water, your feet are getting 100 millimeters of mercury compression, even without wearing compression garments, just from the water. So I love water as a solution. If you're going someplace hot and humid, hopefully there's a pool or an ocean nearby.
Mhm. And if you do wear like water shoes, or just be careful because you don't want to cut your feet if you have lower extremity on any shells or anything like that.
And do a skin check afterwards. And I just noticed that Amber asked a quick question about whether you can put quilted garments in the freezer as well. You can put anything in the freezer. And you can also put things in the fridge if the freezer's too cold for you. I'll make cool packs, just regular gel packs, and put them in the fridge if the freezer's too big of a shock. But yeah, you can put anything. You can put your clothes in the freezer if you want.
I'll put everything in the freezer now. That's awesome. Well, guys, we are at 8:45 Eastern time, which means it's time for our call-in show. I'm super excited about this. For all the questions we didn't get to, we're going to make note and address them next month. But last chance to raise your hand if you want a chance to be selected to join this side of the table. And Catherine's going to spin the magic wheel in a moment. So if you want to join us, please use the raise hand function on Zoom so Catherine can see and get your name for the wheel. And in the meantime, let's see.
So you got 6 of them, right?
I see 6 hands raised. Yep.
And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right.
Okay. Can you share your screen to spin the wheel? I
Sure
think it should be allowed.
Hopefully. No, you need to enable that for me.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Here we go. All right. Try again.
Okay. Can we see the wheel?
Yes.
All right. Is everybody ready?
Here we go.
Here we go.
So exciting. Anita Clifford, if you are on, I see you still on, you're gonna be joining us if you're ready. Okay, I'm gonna hit allow to talk, and we're just gonna chat, maybe share some lymphedema wins you've had recently, or just share a little about your story. So I'm gonna ask you to unmute if you'd like. If you're here, I don't know if you ran to get a glass of water or something. Oh, there she is. Hey, Anita.
Hi, you answered my question when you were talking about getting, you said to get a lymphedema therapist. I have no idea how to find a lymphedema therapist who knows what they're doing.
Where are you located?
I live in the Tampa, Florida area.
Okay.
Oh, there's some great lymphedema therapists in Tampa. And I think, so I know that we're going to be putting some resources in the chat, and that should help guide you. I think there's 2 things to look for. One is that you want someone who's really knowledgeable and knows what they're doing. But 2, you need someone who's going to connect with you and listen with you, because the most educated person in the world, if you don't have a rapport with them, then that's going to be difficult. So those are my 2 pieces of advice with that. But we can help you get, and there's a bunch of resources.
I just sent
So
a bunch.
do a little cut and paste, Anita, because yeah, no, I know a whole bunch of lymphedema therapists in Tampa, and I'm not going to make specific recommendations because I'm going to let you do the legwork, but it's definitely doable.
It is a large area, even though just everybody may say Tampa. I'm 45 minutes from Tampa, so.
Which direction?
I'm east.
East. Okay. Okay.
Well,
So,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I really still don't know how to go about finding a lymphedema therapist so that I can have surgery on my left knee. I'm still recovering from the right knee. It's still painful. I'm taking pain medication.
Yeah, knee surgery can be really, really painful. And I think that if you can get a good lymphedema therapist, that's going to be an ace in the hole for you, because you want to reduce the swelling after surgery and prevent swelling as much as possible, because the goal with knee surgery is to get your range of motion back as soon as possible. And that can be really tough if you're swollen. So if you look in the chat, do you see the links that that we've put in for all the different schools and associations? Because you can do a search and find someone who's close to where you are and go from there. Those would be reputable links to use.
Yeah,
Oh,
the one I just
Kelly.
put in actually has a presentation on Learn from a Dr. Judith Nodelman, I guess. And she has a presentation, but it actually has the links as well. So maybe that'll help you find it. It really, sadly, it's still hit and miss. And I do know NLN is trying to create like a better, like once you graduate, you don't get to go back and do whatever you want. They're trying to come back, figure out a way to evaluate you. Like that's a struggle. I mean, it's because we're like the community, I don't even know how to say it. Like we're just not out there enough to where people understand like what we need to be doing. And then therapists are overworked too. I mean, gosh, like.
So Anita, do you see those links?
Where would I find the link? In chat?
Oh, yeah. Look in the chat. Yeah, scroll up, because Kelly put a great link in there. And then Alexa put in a whole bunch of links above that.
And
so
they'll be in the email too.
Yeah.
But if you want to grab them now.
But this is helpful for anybody, because it's really hard. You want to find a good starting place. You want someone who's reputable. And these links, I think, can be really helpful for you. So I'm really happy that you are advocating for yourself and you're asking for help. And yeah.
We just had a Floridian. Oh, sorry. I was going to say a Floridian patient just popped in the chat. Kathy, who's in Mount Dora, Florida. She just completed lymphedema therapy at Waterman Village outpatient physical therapy and said she got excellent care. So there's information for that in the chat too. I don't know where that is in relation to you, Anita, but we've got some.
It's far.
It's far. Oh, I know that's
that's
the hard part. Everything. Yeah.
You might have to do a little bit of searching, but it's worth the search.
Worth the
It really
search.
is. I mean, it's your body, and you want to have as good a healing result as possible.
I do notice that in trying to keep the pain from my right leg, my knee, in check, it has helped my left knee. You know, I wasn't expecting that, but the left is much, much better on its own.
I was going to say, it's funny you say that. I'm currently undergoing CDT, so my right leg right now is all wrapped up, but my left leg actually went down a little bit in volume with my right leg being treated so intensively. So it's kind of a similar experience to you, where it's kind of helping the other one a little bit when it's doing better.
So Sandy just asked a question about copying the links posted here, and the highlight control C should work, but if you're having difficulties, Alexa is going to email a replay that's going to have all the links again. So maybe that would be a little more of a success for you. Don't give up.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Anita, on this side of the table. And we wish you all the best with your search and with your surgery. My goodness, that's a lot coming up.
And good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. I have lost weight, and for that I'm happy. I've lost just maybe 5 or 6 pounds, which was impossible before. So I'm happy that it's gone.
That's huge.
Every pound makes a difference when you're dealing with knees, for sure.
Yes.
And lymphedema, for that matter.
Yes.
Oh, it's wonderful. Well, since we're in the last 5 minutes or so, we usually like to go around the panel and Anita, you're welcome to stay on too if you'd like, but share something that we're pumped about in the coming month until our next meeting in September. So Catherine, we'll start with you. What are you pumped about?
Ooh. I would love to say that I'm pumped about going back to school, but that's really not the case. But I am pumped that my leg is going to be much different and that I will not going to be afraid to be able to wear different clothing because of the fact that my leg is so much smaller and things are going to fit properly better.
Awesome. Very exciting.
Yes. I even got myself a pair of knee-high boots that fit.
Woo, you're all ready for fall.
Yes.
That's awesome. Kelly, what are you pumped about?
What am I pumped about? Just to be honest with you, like seeing lymphatics being talked about at conferences now, and it's like one of the beginning openers. Central lymphatics, knowing what's going on in here, that's pretty awesome.
It is. That's always something to be pumped about.
Yeah.
Karen, what about you?
I'm going to be doing a lot of traveling over the next month and 2 months. This month, it's going to be more fun stuff. I'm flying to Seattle for a wedding, and then I'm going to go to San Francisco a couple of times and end up in Santa Cruz for a few weeks. And then after that, it's like 5 conferences in a row. So yeah, it's going to be a busy time.
That's exciting though. Busy, but exciting. Booked and busy. Angela, what about you?
I'm excited about 2 things. I'm about to start my last semester of school, and I'll be flying home next week for a month.
And getting massages.
Yes.
That's awesome. Anita, what are you pumped about in the coming month if you'd like to share? Not to keep putting you on the spot.
Are you talking to me? I don't know.
Oh yeah, I am.
Well, I'm just recovering from my right knee surgery, and I would love to be able to sleep through the night without having to wake up in the middle and have to take some painkiller. And usually I turn on $1 Million Listing or Judge Judy, something mindless, but that distracts me. I'm distractible. So I want to get through the right leg, and when it's tolerable, then I will work on doing getting the left leg done. But they know what they're doing with knee surgery. They can do like 5 a day. That's a lot of knees. And there are knee surgeons, lots of surgeons in the Tampa area. No problem finding a surgeon, but to get a good place, that's different. I went to rehab, and I spent 10 days in rehab, and that kind of made me decide I don't ever want to go to senior living, you know. So I will, and now I have to deal with John Hancock. And basically I've been paying in for 17 years, and they do nothing. Every comment that I've read, one is worse than the other with John Hancock. They've gotten out of the business since 2016, and they really don't have people who want to or can help you with their customer service. It's just awful. So tell everybody you know, do not go to John Hancock. So you're just throwing out the money.
Noted. And we'll tell, while we're telling everyone that, tell everyone you know about lymphedema too, people. because like Nita said earlier on, she has to tell her medical professionals to tell someone at their lunch break or whatever about lymphedema and lipedema, and then it's the domino effect. So we'll latch onto that too, Anita. But I'm glad your knees are in good hands, it sounds like, and we wish you the best with the upcoming surgery. And there's a lot of people in the chat too that are saying they've got a lot that they're pumped about. Lourdes says that her daughter's going to have her first baby. She's going to be a third-time grandma, which is so exciting. Fenton's playing pickleball in 90-degree heat and still recovering. Let's see. Oh, and mini golf on Sunday. So most people sound like they're just focusing on staying cool for the end of the summer, which is awesome. And I'm pumped about the end of my CDT and getting new garments at the end of it. That's going to be really nice. So that is our hour, everybody. It's 9 p.m. Eastern time, which means we're going to end, but we thank you all for being here with us again this month. We are here every second Tuesday of the month at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to send you an email in about a week with the replay. It'll also be on our podcast, which is available on Spotify or wherever else you listen. So you can throw it on while you're pumping or when you're at your lymphedema therapist getting MLD or your massage, relaxing. You can listen to our dulcet tones. But we're just so glad y'all are here with us and we appreciate it. If you have any questions about LymphaPress, you can reach out to me at marketing@lymphapress.com. And any questions we didn't get to, which were still a lot, we're going to revisit them next month. And thank you for being with us as we experiment with our new format this month too. So everybody, oops, people are saying, bring on the pumpkin spice. Yes, September next month. Can you believe it? It's exciting. Low fat and low sugar, of course, Fenton clarifies. That's good. But thanks everyone for being here. Hope you have a great evening and we'll see you in September. Bye-bye.